Kobolds, like children, are stupid, ugly, annoying, and make easy pickings in a fight. But still, I think they're among the best designed creatures in the game. In a game where you can battle avatars of the gods, ancient dragons, or whatever the hell this is supposed to be, it might seem odd to want to talk about one of the weakest monsters around. But think about it, there is no shortage of weak creatures available in D&D. All of these are the same challenge rating as the Kobolds, so why aren't they used nearly as often? Are Kobolds really so much better?
Well, in all honesty, I would say yes. On all levels but the physical, the Kobold is the perfect monster. Ladies and gentlemen, let me present your god. Let's dive in.
To understand why Kobolds are so great, we need to first talk about what makes any monster good or bad. In my opinion, any combat encounter, any creature, or any event in D&D can be good if it's presented in the right way. And frankly, what exactly makes a good D&D monster requires a whole video of its own. But for now, I think a good place to start is the following 2 criteria.
1. It actively inspires and encourages players to explore, innovate, learn, and have fun. And 2. It offers more to your campaign than a simple combat encounter. So let's take a look at Kobolds and ask whether they do these things and talk about, well, why they're so bloody brilliant, basically.
When assessing any creature, it's important to understand the primary context in which it is going to be encountered. Kobolds have a challenge rating of 1/8. They are absolutely beginner-level monsters.
Kobolds are the first creatures a lot of players will fight. They were the first creatures I ever did. Many players might not know the rules yet. They might be constantly checking their weapons and abilities between rounds, or asking to borrow a D12 each time they have to attack, or accidentally spilling Capri Sun all over the table when they move their character. Yes, I did all these things. Many times.
Kobolds and other low CR creatures serve as an introduction to combat, and so we can judge them based on what they achieve in this role, how good they are at teaching a player who is new to the game. Thanks to pack tactics, which give Kobolds advantage on attack rolls when fighting close together, and sunlight sensitivity, which gives disadvantage on attack rolls in sunlight, a total beginner in their first combat encounter ever will, by the end, understand the value of advantage on attack rolls, the danger of disadvantage, the value in isolating creatures, the fact that creatures can do different and powerful things when interacting with each other. This might even inspire them to look to their teammates for advantages when fighting in pairs. Perhaps that bard over there might be able to do something to give you advantage when you attack next.
Kobolds also introduce us to both melee and ranged attacks, and negative attack modifiers. Maybe you were worried you were going to get hit when the DM rolled a 14, but that -2 made it a very near miss. You're not going to forget the importance of damage modifiers anytime soon.
Tutorials in any game work best when you learn without realizing. If you haven't seen Egoraptor's Sequelitis video on Mega Man Classic vs Mega Man X, I really recommend it, because it's a perfect explanation of how to teach a player to play a game subliminally, and how crucial this is to a fun gaming experience.
With Kobolds as your first encounter, as far as you know, you're just playing a game. But really, you're learning all about the mechanics and tactics and interactions that can happen, just by the way Kobolds are.
Kobolds give a ton of information to beginners in a beautiful, ugly, scaly package, while also letting your first ever PC try stuff out in a fairly low-risk environment. You want to climb onto a barrel and body slam one? Yeah, give it a try. You are very unlikely to die. And Kobolds give us all this information and all this freedom simply by getting decapitated or set on fire or smushed into a fine paste.
Of course, not all players around the table are necessarily new. The DM is a player like anyone else, and this is where the Kobold can really inspire creative, challenging, and incredibly complex scenarios from the DM, just by virtue of their in-universe characterization, particularly their love of traps.
There is a famous D&D encounter called Tucker's Kobolds that highlights just how devastating going into a well-trapped kobold lair can be. A party of high-level adventurers enter a dungeon with numerous levels, the latter of which feature enormous flaming demons and other such creatures. The first level, though, was the domain of Tucker's Kobolds. And it was hell. Flaming Molotov cocktails raining from above, murder holes in the walls of the passage from which an endless rain of crossbow bolts flew. If you've never read the story, do, as it's a perfect example of how to take any encounter and make it brutally difficult for even a party of high-level PCs. But the point is, this propensity for trap making and ambushes is built into the Kobold's lore, and it leaves them wide open for exploration and innovation on the part of the DM. They are built from the bones up in a way that encourages new ideas and interesting setups. And sure, a good DM could do this, and maybe should be doing this, with any creature. But with Kobolds, the hard world-building work is done for you.
Honestly, all the stuff we've talked about is more than enough to put Kobolds in the top tier of monster design. But they go further. What can Kobolds offer to your wider campaign?
When it comes to making the most of monsters outside of combat, it really falls a great deal more down to the DM. Any creature can be made to be interesting. It's your choice if you have the party meet a homeless man outside of a bar, or if you have them ambushed by a screaming naked man wielding a pitchfork and an ironing board riding a chariot pulled by a giant rat. The combat statistics might be similar, but one certainly raises more questions.
When it comes to Kobolds, they have this wonderful world-building package crammed right into them. They are butthurt wannabe dragons who'll take orders from anyone who's mean enough. Basically, they imply a hierarchy simply by showing up, getting beaten up, and then running away.
The phrase, "where there's smoke, there's fire," comes to mind, with the Kobolds being the smoke, and the evil gnome sorcerer Jeff being the fire. We don't need to see Jeff, we don't need to hear from Jeff, but if we see Kobolds sneaking around, doing a few misdeeds, we can be pretty sure they're acting under some higher authority. Some higher authority we're probably going to have to set on fire.
Thanks to their cowardice and low wisdom and intelligence, Kobolds also make great exposition devices. If a party captures one, they're not going to struggle to convince it to sing like Tweety Pie. This gives the party a great way to feel like they've achieved something by passing an intimidation check, and gives the DM a great, authentic, natural way to deliver a load of exposition that's going to be relevant later in the story.
So, in conclusion, Kobolds not only teach new players how to play the game and offer DMs opportunities to innovate in their game, they also keep the game narrative moving along, simply by virtue of existing in it at all.
They may be stupid, they may be ugly, they may be annoying, but Kobolds have a lot to offer. They are D&D's best, worst creature, and I think they deserve a little bit more love. Thanks for watching.